there's a new consciousness afoot on this planet, which is very, very exciting. Everything is changing and everyone is noticing. So there is no intellectual contemplation about the possibilities. It just is, and we're all in the midst of it. For some people it's exhilarating, they're reinventing themselves. For other people it's just scaring the dickens out of them. But what's really nice about this is it is truly an opportunity to rethink our entire paradigm. In fact, that's what we're being moved toward, because what's happening is not just happening with us, but it's happening with us and a larger context, so that we're actually being ushered, as well as making choices within the movement toward the new consciousness, the new paradigm, the new entirely different reality base. It's coming out in all kinds of different ways. In physics, there are some new laws that are on the verge of being discovered. In astronomy, they're discovering new things. They're discovering, for example, that the space between things is as real and as full as those things which were obvious and tangible. In theology, things are changing. We are actually moving towards a time of harmony and balance, rather than embracing simply one half of a duality, righteousness, goodness, being positive. So the paradigm shift actually changes the goals as well as the process to having these goals. How I like to phrase it, being a former marriage and family therapist who looks at systems and how things affect each other, and then in my spiritual practice looking at patterns of how things work together, I have begun to embrace and notice that how I would put it metaphysically is that there's a balance of the masculine and the feminine occurring. We have been living in a world that has been very, very absorbed for a very long time with that which is tangible, which is obvious, which is quantifiable, measurable, achievable in a standard and measurable sense. Now what's starting to happen is we're actually moving into more of what I would call the feminine side of the equation, which is dealing with things about quality of life, community. How do we all work together? What kind of experience do we wish to have here? Meaning, purpose. And so a lot of things are happening for people that are causing them to actually reevaluate, not only globally, but interpersonally and even personally, which is where it all starts. What is it that's important to me? What is it I want to be doing here? Who am I? What feels like mine? And where do I want to be? Who do I want to be around? And beginning to do that by suspending and leaving behind the idea of judgment. This is the way it's supposed to be. There is no other way but that. You should do this. I should do this. Now we all have our roles mapped out, and so forth. Now, there's nothing wrong with roles, but what happens is when we begin to identify with those roles, then we start to lose connection with that source which actually feeds and sustains all of us. And therefore, we're no longer able to feel or hear those messages which guide us. And so in the practice that I have, journey work, what I discover is that people have begun to feel that they've lost touch with themselves, that they have a loneliness that they keep trying to fill in ways that just doesn't satisfy it, that they are more anxious than they used to be or would like to be, and that they are wishing now to feel that they belong, that they can feel what home feels like, not only in terms of environment, but in terms of internal being in sync with what's happening with the rest of their life, so that there's not such a gap between here's the life that I'm living and here's the feeling that I really would rather experience. So here's what I want to be having, and more than just on the weekend, more than just 2 weeks out of the year for a vacation. This is what I want to be doing. This is why I came here. And even if we don't know all the details of it, we have some sense of, okay, this is the direction I want to start going now. For some of us, we really do begin to get details. And if we can start anywhere in that series of movements, then the next steps become clearer for us. So it doesn't matter whether we don't have a clue or whether we have a general blueprint already that we're aware of. It's a matter of you start where you are. and then the universe picks up the rest. You hum a few bars and it will fill in the rest of the chorus, and that we actually are being sustained. I have a lot of students now, which you're saying, for example, I decided that I wanted to make a change in this way, or I wanted some healing around this issue which has plagued me. And now as I've begun to do my personal work, what I've also noticed is that some things just appear to be changed, just appear to be gone, and I don't know exactly how it happened. How I believe that this happened, and I use belief in quotes because I'm not really a believer in beliefs, is that people have done a lot of work on a lot of different levels. And so what happens is when they get to that tipping point, then the shift begins to happen. The balance begins to shift back the other way. We all seek balance, we all seek harmony. Being a part of nature, being part of the universe, that's just inbred in us, that we will seek that. The same as we have instincts to survive, the same as we have the desire to thrive. And so where we feel out of balance, we automatically begin to seek that which will bring us into balance. Now, in places where we're unconscious, what tends to happen is we react our way into it. Well, I didn't like that, so now I'm going to go clear over here. And I certainly have done that myself. This looks different, so it must be right. And in fact, that's not necessarily so. And then people will come to me again as clients and go, why is it I keep attracting this into my life? And we talk about the pattern and begin to break that down, and then begin to get to the bottom line, which is, what is it you think you'd like to do about this? And there's all kinds of things we can do then to begin to facilitate the healing. But again, a lot of the healing actually happens outside of our reasonable volition. Good doctors, good healers will tell you, I may be able to do the things to help set the stage, to help create the environment, to make it possible for healing to occur. But the actual healing, none of us knows how to do that. It's a mystery to us. It just begins to occur. The body, the mind just begins to seek wellness. So those kinds of things are becoming standard right now. So now comes the question, great, what does this mean, and what's our contribution, and what do we do now? And what I want to say is, you relax as best you can. You participate in your own life. Remember to show up. Remember that you have a lot of choice. Let yourself off the hook of having to do absolutely everything yourself. And know that the part of you that is making decisions, the higher you, is more than just your personality. So you are actually receiving a lot of guidance about the kind of choices to make. And even if you make choices which create big owies and you run into that wall yet again, which seems so familiar, don't worry about it. You can redo this. Now, does it have some consequences and costs when we go off of our balance point? Yes, it does. But we've already experienced the worst of that. We know what that feels like. It hurts. It doesn't feel comfortable. It makes us sad. It makes us scared. All those kinds of things. We already know that. That's the worst that will happen. Now, can we have the courage to actually embrace something very, very new? And when you get out of anything that is familiar, what automatically begins to happen for all of us is a certain level of anxiety. Oh my goodness, will I perish? It's what Columbus discovered with his crew when he started heading towards the New World. Oh my goodness, are we going to fall off the edge of the earth and we'll all perish? We have that sort of fear inside no matter what. Oh my goodness, if I change the way I do relationships. Oh my goodness, if I change the way that I think about myself, which ultimately is what it boils down to most immediately and basically, in terms of the personality, then what will happen to me? Well, what will happen is you'll have to make another choice and you'll go do something different. Now, that's not to say take a siesta, folks, it doesn't matter what you do. Of course it matters. And there are certain things that we are planetarily on the verge of losing if we don't attend to these things. So it is a matter, again, of affecting the quality of life, but not necessarily the existence of life itself. The planet is a very large being. She can take care of herself. So that's not an issue. And we are immortal souls, and so we will continue to go on. That's not an issue either. But in this lifetime, this experience on the planet the way she is now, this moment will never come again. And so it's very, very precious. And that's what we're encouraged to do, is to examine the preciousness of life and to ask ourselves the kinds of questions that say, What does that mean for me? How does that translate for me? What makes my life precious? What would a precious life be for me? And to get away from half dualities, half of a duality which says, well, then how can I do my life right? How can I not make a wrong mistake? How can I be more positive? I want to be positive. I would encourage you to embrace concepts about being loving. And in fact, the things that we have in common, which include things such as sadness and anger, etc., we all have, and we have them for a reason. They're not flaws, they're actually systems of information for us. What we do with them, the choices we make around them, whether we judge them or not, and then how we react as a result of that judgment onto our world and onto ourselves, is what becomes problematic. It's not that there's anything wrong with negative or dark or sadness or grief or anger or any of that. What becomes problematic is if we go live there, and then it becomes as unfruitful and as damaging as, believe it or not, living in the other half exclusively. Because what happens is we're leaving half of our world, half of our reality, completely out of the picture. And we are out of balance. And when we are out of balance, the amount of energy that it takes to try to sustain that, after a while becomes untenable. And so then we begin to do things which affect our health, which affect our well-being. We begin to guilt trip ourselves because we can't sustain these impossibilities, and on and on and on. And then we run around in a gerbil wheel again. So now we're beginning to actually break out into an entirely different type of experience and way of evaluating what's happening for us that frankly has not existed on this planet before. This is brand new, fresh turf, and that's what makes it so exciting. What's also equally exciting, all the way down to the smallest unit, and on the way, looking at us as individuals, there is no one like us either anywhere. And so it's absolutely ludicrous for us to compare ourselves to some sort of external standard or paradigm to which we should live. What we can do is to begin to learn how to listen for that smaller voice, that deeper feeling that guides us back into our own balance. Then all of the other things automatically begin to take care of themselves. How we interact with each other, how we treat each other, how we treat other species, how we take care of our environment, how we learn to appreciate who we are without arrogance, but fully, honestly, honorably, loving ourselves, so that we in turn can love other people. And so the end of polarity as conflict is beginning to happen. We are moving towards genuine harmony. And right now, all of those things which are counter to that are rising to the surface for us to reevaluate. It looks like the world is coming into total chaos. What's happening is the old paradigm is dying, and that's a good thing. So now we get the opportunity to again move into, what would I like to be when I grow up? What feels like mine? What do I really want to do here? And what's enjoyable for me? What speaks to me? And what would I like to offer my world? And ultimately, the best that we can offer is being genuinely who we are. So celebrate. It's 2012, and we're moving into a new world.